Regarding to the childcare plan, you announced it yesterday. NDP has some comment on that, saying you and your colleague voted against their proposals for affordable childcare. What's your comment on that?
Well, the NDP have lots of fantasies about their childcare plan, including that the Green Party blocked them from proceeding, which is a complete nonsense. The NDP love to come up with excuses for non-performance. We do not provide excuses, we get things done. And on childcare, we have said up to $65,000 family income, it'll be $10 a day for everybody in that category. Because we have to get those people back to work, and they can't get back to work if they can't afford childcare. Up to $90,000, $20 a day for the same reason. And up to $125,000 of family income, $30 a day. The NDP have lots of excuses, and the only reason they came up with a pilot program to do their $10 a day program is because the federal government insisted that they do it. It's a long history of broken promises from John Horgan, whether it's on infrastructure projects like the Surrey Hospital or the daycare program, renters rebate. You really cannot trust anything that John Horgan says.
Do you follow up, Abby?
I think she's done.
Great, sounds good. We'll go to the line next. Alyssa Thibault from CTV News is on the line. You can go ahead, Alyssa.
Oh, hi, Mr. Wilkinson. I did want to ask you about your plan for the Richmond hospitals and just some statements that you made regarding NDP's plan. Now, Horgan was at Richmond Hospital back in July saying that they do have a plan to build a bigger acute care tower and it could be completed by 2024. So I just want to check if your Liberal government is elected and win the election, do you have a time frame of when your plan could be built, and how does it differ to what the NDP has already announced?
The original plan approved by the BC Liberals in 2016 provided for $283 million for the facility to be built. There was some reworking around the underlying geology, and now there's a slightly different plan, and the costing is still not complete, but we will build that new tower. And the plan is for over 200 beds of acute care services to go into the new tower to replace some of the existing services. We fully endorse the revised plan, and we will pay for it.
Do you have a follow-up, Alyssa?
Yeah, so I guess, do you say 200 new beds? Because I'm just reading that the NDP's plan is for 102. So is yours going to be bigger than what the NDP was planning?
No, the plan for the revised hospital is the same, and the issue is that some of the new beds replace existing beds. Just like in any hospital redevelopment, what usually happens is that the oldest beds in the facility are retired and converted to outpatient services, and the new facility has all of the necessary electronics, all of the clinical services that are needed in a modern hospital. So the plan is essentially the same, but we will actually get this done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to the ground. We've got Graham Wood from Glacier Media there. Graham, you can go ahead.
Hey, Andrew. My question was fairly similar to that. How do you expedite this timeline? The NDP delayed it with a new revised plan. You don't disagree with that, so how do you expedite it? Isn't this a matter of bureaucracy?
Well, there's an issue of the NDP's attitude to infrastructure that they like to talk about how they'll review, revise, and reassess. They're going to review, revise, and reassess the Massey Tunnel for the next 10 years. And we say, no, the day we take office, we'll be pushing for the immediate restart of construction on the Massey Tunnel. We take the same approach with hospital construction. They announced the Abbotsford Hospital 12 times during the 1990s, and nothing happened. We built it in 3 years. So our approach to construction is get it done and get it done promptly. Unlike the NDP, who like to talk about maybe revising, maybe reviewing, and maybe reassessing, and maybe funding someday. We don't do that. We get things built.
Do you have a follow-up, Graham?
No.
Sir,
good. We will. Oh.
Right, sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Would you consider going the same sort of a model as Ontario has regarding using the lotto money for healthcare?
Columbia's healthcare structure is publicly funded medical care. I've worked in the system for years. and it's the right way to go. There's no need to change the actual funding mechanism. And in terms of building hospital facilities, you can't have it depend upon variable revenues and things that might come along and might not. You commit to these things, just like you commit to a bridge project. You pay it out of central government funds so that the infrastructure money is there and doesn't depend on eventualities down the road.
The shortfall
Great, thanks.
for PST, where are you guys going to cover that amount of money? It's a huge amount of funding that comes in.
We've been very consistent saying that governments around the Western world will be running deficits for the next few years. And we will not cut any health, education, or social services. This is like a wartime economy, folks. We've got to stick together, get British Columbia going again by restoring confidence and rebuilding BC. And that means we're going to have deficits for a few years to come, but we need to do that to get going again.
Okay, great. It sounds like we're done on the ground there, so we'll go back to the line. I've got Simon Little from Global News. Go ahead, Simon.
Hi. When the NDP announced that this hospital would be bigger than originally planned back in July, and we checked in with you folks for comment, Jazz told us that he was worried about the cost of the larger hospital and how that was going to be paid for with the pandemic spending. What's changed since then in terms of your approach?
Well, the NDP had a business plan that was ready to proceed at the end of September. But guess what? John Horgan called an election and blocked the progress to the next step, which is actual funding of the facility. So everything is done except the allocation of funding, which the NDP somehow forgot to do in the 2020 budget, and they somehow forgot to do before calling an election. So we take NDP promises for hospital construction with about a kilogram of salt, because they've never actually built a hospital in the last 30 years. We built 14. We deliver when we promise hospitals.
Do you have a follow-up, Simon?
I do, yeah. The NDP also today announcing they'll build an elementary school down there in Olympic Village. Where do you folks stand on a school for that community?
We all know that downtown Vancouver's had a rapidly changing educational scenario because more and more families are choosing to stay in Vancouver right in the core as their children grow older. Originally, the idea was that the King George High School in the West End would basically peak out because the number of kids is expected to go down. Now it's actually going up. So we're going to have to address this issue of elementary schools in the downtown core because the number of children is actually growing slowly but surely. And that's a completely legitimate query that we'll be addressing in the election campaign.
Great, thanks. We have time for one more question today, and that'll go to Gordon Hoekstra from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Gordon.
Well, good afternoon, Andrew. I guess a more sort of general, broader question that's been touched on already. I mean, in the past, the liberals have been known as, prudent fiscal managers, and you've made these significant announcements that on the PST that'll reduce revenues and some pretty significant spending announcements. I'm just trying to wonder how the voters should take that. I mean, as the parties approach to fiscal management changed, and what should they think about that?
Well, we all learned in the Depression and World War II that there are times when spending is required, and this is one of them. We've had a massive shrinking of our gross national product in Canada. We all know about the second wave that's well underway in Ontario and Quebec. We all know about the major shutdowns going across Europe and the United States. We have an economy that's in trouble, and that's a time when the borrowing power of government has to be used. Interest rates for government borrowing now extremely low, so we have to make sure we look after the people of British Columbia during this troubled time, and government can do that by keeping the economy moving, by keeping construction going, by keeping hospitals and education fully funded. And when I go for my bike ride every morning up in the park near my house and see 3 motorhomes, old ones with British Columbia plates, because people are sleeping in them because they've run out of money, that is not the time to cut social services.
Do you have a follow-up, Gordon?
Yeah, just wondering, I mean, that's essentially the thesis that the NDP is putting forward. So to the voters, how do you differentiate the Liberals then from that kind of approach?
We invest in getting things done. The NDP talk and don't deliver. It's that simple. You just have to look at our record of hospital construction. We're proud of putting up 14 acute care hospitals in 16 years. They did 0 in 13 years. And recently, it's hard to point to anything the NDP have built. They've only completed BC Liberal projects, and their newly initiated projects like the Pattullo Bridge, the hospital and terrace, nothing has happened. Nothing at all. Empty promises and empty rhetoric from the NDP versus construction, delivered promises from the BC Liberals.